Chapter 9:19. The justice of the human race, a fated person? Then they must be very formidable, right? And Zizai looked at the two names on the paper and sighed, thinking, for the ancestor to personally write their names, they must be extraordinary. Wei Yi Luan. And Zizai remembered these two names. He didn't know when these two would come to Central Heaven. After spending a long time with Guan, he also understood what to ask and what not to ask. Matters concerning the future should not be inquired about, while past events could be freely discussed. After finding solace with the ancestor, and Zizai bid farewell with a courtesy, preparing to inform the other disciples to focus on their cultivation. Although Guan had closed the lifespan dojo, his Tao intent enveloped this land, allowing him to perfectly avoid cause and effect deductions. Unless the immortal gods came here personally, even then he could erase the memories of the immortal gods. He currently still preferred this secluded life. Compared to constant fighting, life held many interesting things. Playing chess with others, traveling through mountains and waters, fishing in rivers, painting by the mountainside and waterside, and so on, each having its own unique joy. He could also find the true meaning of the great Tao and comprehend it amidst these pleasures. The saints can already harness the great Tao, but the great Tao is vast, continuously creating transformations, endlessly born. The saints' enlightenment still aids in cultivation, but their angles and perspectives of enlightenment have changed. After Zizai left, Guan continued writing names, practicing his calligraphy. The spring breeze blew by, and the river of time in Central Heaven kept extending. A million years later, Central Heaven became silent. Above the sea of clouds, Li Xuanmiao, wearing the white robe of an immortal monarch, stood shoulder to shoulder with several other immortal monarchs. They were gazing at the mortal world, discussing. This supreme demon god has already gained momentum and cannot be stopped. Naturally, as he was once the son of heaven who held power in the celestial court. I wonder what His Majesty is thinking. Could it really be that he lets him run amok? At this rate, the perfect creation by Hall Master Taihao will be destroyed. Indeed, Central Heaven possesses more creation than other realms, being able to become a significant force of the celestial court. It is said that His Majesty ceded power to Heavenly Emperor Taishang because Heavenly Emperor Taishang is stronger. One immortal monarch had barely finished speaking when he was glared at by the others, quickly silencing him. 3 feet overhead dwells the divine and even immortal gods fear, because in their hearts the celestial emperor is heaven, and heaven is everywhere, naturally able to see them. Although Li Xuanmiao did not participate in the discussion, he deeply despised the supreme demon god. Back then, Heavenly Emperor Taishang brought calamity to the 3,000 great worlds, slaughtering countless living beings. Large regions fell because of him, causing Li Xuanmiao to be filled with anger and hostility towards him. Now, seeing Heavenly Emperor Taishang descend again, bringing harm to new worlds, his animosity reached its peak, wishing to personally descend and exterminate him. Even though this supreme demon god possessed power comparable to some immortal monarchs, Li Xuanmiao would absolutely charge at the front if ordered. The immortal monarchs, having mentioned the celestial emperor, fell into silence. When they first arrived, their anticipation dissipated, for with the mischief of the supreme demon god, their subsequent immortal positions would not be peaceful. After a while, an immortal monarch spoke, "Let's go, it's time to find a place to establish a dojo." The other immortal monarchs nodded, and Li Xuanmiao also followed them, flying away from the direction of the supreme demon god. Before descending to the lower realm, there was already a celestial order informing them not to confront the supreme demon god. Initially they were curious as to which demon god could command Sangtian not to let them touch him. They never thought this demon god was the reincarnated son of heaven, making them realize their upcoming years would be walking on thin ice. When the immortal gods descended, no phenomena manifested, for even they did not dare give hope to all living beings. In these million years, all powerful beings who vocally opposed the supreme demon god vanished, all stripped of their cultivation by him. There were undoubtedly many great powers still existing in secret, but no one dared resist him openly. The human race took the opportunity to proliferate greatly, people spread across the world, showing signs of becoming masters of heaven and earth. News of the supreme demon god grew less, not because he paused, but because there were few opponents to make him fight with all his might. Now he could subdue opponents within 3 moves, so naturally no news would spread. But on this day the supreme demon god faced an opponent he found hard to harm. Under the blue sky, amidst flying sand and stones, on the cliffs above a gorge stood 2 figures. One was the supreme demon god, his head full of disheveled white hair, wearing a black and red long robe, with an aura of evil condensed into blood-like energy surrounding him. His eyes carried a dark red, faintly showing blood threads, looking overwhelmingly sinister. The other was Wuxia, who once visited the white-haired ancestor with Heavenly Emperor Tai Shang. Wuxia was already an innate golden immortal. Across the world, his cultivation wasn't much, yet he still came to confront the supreme demon god. Looking at the supreme demon god, Wuxia found it difficult to associate him with that supreme Taoist friend. His eyes were complex, myriad words dissipated in his heart. At this moment he felt no need to say anything as the other's aura already spoke volumes. The supreme demon god indeed had many words to say, and he spoke, "You also belong to the human race, why stop me? Though all living beings see me as a demon, I am the justice the human race pursues. I have never harmed people and even helped many, leading the human race to prosperity." Wuxia said calmly, "That was the human race of Central Heaven. Your deeds have not been kind to me. I cultivate in Central Heaven, benefiting from its creation, and have the responsibility to maintain the order of heaven and earth." The supreme demon god smiled and said, "My cultivation has reached the Miaojin Daluo immortal realm. Do you know the gap between us? After your breakthrough is the heaven-balancing golden immortal. Above that is the Taiqing golden immortal, and above Taiqing golden immortal is the heaven-opening Daluo immortal. Above the heaven-opening Daluo immortal is my realm." Listening to his words, Wuju's gaze subtly changed, yet his face still showed a resolute color. The supreme demon god stared at Wuju coldly, saying, "With just a thought, you would vanish to ashes. What gives you the courage to fight me? What are you thinking? Gambling on my mercy and nostalgia?" Boom, the cliffs on both sides instantly shattered, and the entire world darkened. Wuju floated in midair, his entire body tense, instinctively feeling fear, his eyes widened, and his forehead covered in cold sweat. He couldn't believe how powerful the supreme demon god was. Suddenly, the supreme demon god appeared before him, striking his face with a palm. Instantly, his sight plunged into darkness. And then Wuju lost consciousness. What seemed like an eternity passed. Wuju abruptly opened his eyes. He instinctively sat up, finding himself amid ruins, surrounded by debris. He reached for his body, discovering even his robe was unharmed. He looked toward the horizon, his expression turning complex. "You speak so ruthlessly, why spare my life?" Wuju murmured to himself, sighing involuntarily. The reason he dared to confront the supreme demon god naturally was that he had his backing. He had the method of reincarnating and reviving, and could become stronger for it, intending to test the supreme demon god's might first. Yet the supreme demon god spared him, unsettling his heart once more. Whatever righteousness there was, Wuju cared more about his own feelings. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 920, An immortal encounter on a deserted island. Gu observed Martial Resolution's predicament with a slight shake of his head, thinking Martial Resolution was too arrogant. Martial Resolution's method of resurrection and rebirth was insignificant in the face of absolute realm disparity, not to mention the supreme demon god was once a primordial profound venerable immortal, able to see through his Taoist technique at a glance. The supreme demon god did not kill Martial Resolution, which made Guan somewhat relieved. Ever since being defeated, the Supreme underwent great changes, making amends with the 3,000 great worlds, and even sparing those he once befriended. Of course, this change wasn't enough for Guan to help alter his doomed fate. For those beings destroyed by the Heavenly Emperor Supreme, who altered their fates, Guan would at most take care of Martial Resolution, but was too lazy to comment on Martial Resolution's thoughts. What mattered to him was his relationship with Martial Resolution, not Martial Resolution's views on other matters, as long as he didn't commit too many evils. Moreover, Martial Resolution's power was insufficient to affect the Supreme Demon God. The downfall of the Supreme Demon God would also impact Martial Resolution, giving him a deeper understanding of the heavenly Tao. Guan walked down the mountain, intending to visit the city built by the Wuxia disciples. Nowadays, outsiders wander this continent daily, and the Wuxia disciples have found a way. They have truthfully arranged tasks for themselves, each with time to rest and cultivate. Of course, they're not swapping duties every day or two, but every 10 or 20 years, which makes many returnees feel the passage of time. So far, no outsider has managed to stay. They fail to see through the Wuxia disciples' disguise but sense a feeling of detachment that makes it difficult for them to remain. Some beings are intrigued by this phenomenon, but later mysteriously feel compelled to leave. At first, the Wuxia disciples did not notice anything, but as more beings came and went, they gradually realized it was the ancestors' handiwork. To silently change others' thoughts, what kind of cultivation level, what kind of divine skills would that require? They couldn't comprehend it, but that didn't stop their longing. As people came and went, the Wuxia disciples gradually became less tense, able to calmly handle all arrivals. 2 million disciples, none yet discovered. Of course, the primary reason is still that the outsiders have too elevated a cultivation level. Even if the Wuxia disciples revealed their true cultivation level, they remain overlooked. The real test lies ahead. The blood sacrifice clan achieves the immortal position of a few, while the human race succeeds, but countless generations become mortal spirit, with any prosperity leading to decline. Is this your heavenly Tao? Guan walked through the forest, gazing at the magnificent mountains and rivers beyond, speaking softly to himself. His words revealed the fate of the Central Heaven human clan. When the human race can truly unify Central Heaven, it marks the moment of their decline, as the immortal gods allow no race to unify Central Heaven, a rule differing from the 3,000 great worlds. The 3,000 great worlds are unified by the human race with the highest wisdom roots, but the human cultivators, due to excessive intelligence and ambition, overshadowing mortal spirits' faith in the immortal gods, incur their displeasure. Guan traveled down the mountain, passing through the Taoist field of the beginningless, feeling as if entering the mortal world, where people toil, transport the escort vehicle, herd cattle, making it hard to believe this is Central Heaven. After leaving the Taoist field, Guan arrived at a deserted island, located far from the Taoist field. Even a free immortal needs many years to cross the sea. He personally built a pavilion on the island, moving slowly without using mana, spending several days. The pavilion is halfway up the mountain. Outside the courtyard is a cliff with views of the expansive ocean. Once the pavilion was completed, Guan descended to the beach, seeing a large sea turtle crawling on the sand, attempting to come ashore, the waves washing over it, its shell a deep gray, seemingly inscribed with patterns, appearing as profound as an array map. This sea turtle is a lowly being of Central Heaven, comparable in strength to a free immortal, yet lacking the divine skills of a free immortal, unable to undergo transformation. Since the human race's rise, the lowest talent of Central Heaven's beings has continually declined, while the highest talent has continually risen. In the future, many beings who fail to achieve free immortal will spread across the earth, even mortal spirit appearing, making the disparity in status and rank even more pronounced. Guan stopped the sea turtle, which looked at him with vacant eyes, then slowly moved aside, wanting to avoid him. Before Guan, this sea turtle was like a small mountain, yet it dared not collide with him. If Guan hadn't seen through its flesh, he might think it was aged. But in reality, relative to its long lifespan, it was still in its youth, and its future self could grow to be 100,000 zhang tall, supporting continents, classified as an ancient fierce beast. Guan's lips curled up, and appeared out of nowhere on the turtle's shell. Instantly, the turtle sank, its limbs struggling but unable to advance further, growing anxious, its claws stirring up a whirl of sand but to no avail. Finally it stopped as if falling asleep. Guan sat on the turtle's shell. Days passed with the sun setting and moon rising. Pressed by Guan, it struggled occasionally before succumbing to slumber, repeating the cycle. Several months later, a black fissure appeared on the beach behind Guan and a silhouette fell out, crashing onto the sand in a pitiful state. This was a bloodied man, his breath weak, lying on the ground with a slight gasp, consciousness lingering. Guan appeared oblivious to his presence, not turning, still meditating. Yet the turtle below sensed the commotion, turning to look, its neck surprisingly dragon-like, extending beyond the shell, seeing the situation behind. When it spotted the grievously injured man, it hesitated for a moment. Then it suddenly noticed someone seated on its shell, its eyes widening, and in a blink, it retreated into its shell with limbs withdrawn. This action was starkly different from its usual sluggishness, amusing Guan. He opened his eyes, stood up, turning to approach. Leaping from the turtle's shell, he reached the injured man's side. He halted before the injured man, not crouching but gently stroking his chin, observing the injured man closely. Luan raised his head with difficulty, his face mangled with only clear eyes, lifting to look at Guan, eyes pleading. "Help! Help!" Luan spoke painfully, unable to utter the word me. Guan looked down on him, asking, "If I save you, you must serve as a slave for 10 million years, do you accept?" 10 million years? Luan's gaze froze, startled by the duration. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 921. Obsession with Revenge 10 million years? How long would that be? Lewin has already lived for over 1 million years, but 10 million years is still an unreachable time for him. He can feel his vitality slipping away, death approaching him, so powerless that he cannot even rise. This fear prevents him from weighing his options for too long. I am willing, Lewin said with difficulty, his whole body trembling, using what little strength he had left. Guan's lips curled into a smile as he looked down at him, waving his sleeve. Immediately, Lewin felt sleepiness surging like a tide, his eyelids drooping. Covered in blood, Lewin fell into a deep sleep, his injuries healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Lewin had a dream. He dreamt of reuniting with his childhood friend Wei Yi, who questioned him about killing the righteous Tao leader and his daughter. He explained that he had been manipulated, a force controlling his body, causing him to slay his enemies, but Wei Yi did not believe him and said the world was about to face unprecedented turmoil, and he was the culprit of it all. Wei Yi's look of disappointment and anger deeply hurt him, jolting him awake suddenly. He opened his eyes to a blue celestial vault, sitting up instinctively, only to see a giant turtle as large as a small mountain lying in front of him, staring at him. Startled, he jumped up, prepared for battle. However, his movements frightened the turtle, causing it to retract into its shell. Lewin was taken aback, then realized his wounds were healed. He touched his body, finding it intact. The memories before he fainted surfaced in his mind, and he looked around instinctively, wanting to find the mysterious person who saved him. Soon he noticed a pavilion halfway up the mountain. Using his divine sense to investigate, he found no signs of anyone. The spiritual energy here, how is it possible? Lewin widened his eyes, breathing rapidly. He had never felt such dense spiritual energy, not even in the dojos of those holy lands. Moreover, he felt the heavens filled with majestic Tao intent, making his mind and body feel at ease. What kind of place is this, exactly? His divine sense swept outwards, seeing only an endless ocean. There wasn't even a continent, nor could he spot any other islands, as if this was the only island between heaven and earth. Thinking about being a slave for 10 million years, he couldn't help but take a deep breath, trying to adjust his mindset. After standing there for a while, he decided to climb the mountain to take a look. Soon he walked into the courtyard halfway up the mountain. As soon as he stepped in, he stopped in his tracks, shocked to see a man in white preparing to split firewood in the courtyard. What is going on? His divine sense clearly hadn't detected this person, and even now he couldn't sense the man's presence. Well experienced, Lewin was only momentarily stunned, then bowed and cupped his fists in salute to Guan, saying in a deep voice, "Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. May I know your name?" "My name isn't important. What's important is who you are," Guan retorted casually. According to the original fate, Lewin would take 1 billion years to arrive at Central Heaven. He appeared early because he met a fatal calamity. Guan rescued him, bringing him to Central Heaven. The great infinite demon ancestor continuously sent mortals to the heavenly Tao as variables, attracting the attention of the eternal Tao extreme. They were unaware of the demon ancestor's existence, but by chance discovered Lewin was a heavenly Tao variable, so they intended to possess Lewin. In that battle, Lewin was completely outmatched and Guan didn't kill those beings, only rescuing Lewin. Lewin thought it was the divine skills tearing through time and space, inadvertently bringing him here. "I am named Lewin from the Nanjiang continent," Lewin replied promptly. Seeing that Guan had no intention to introduce himself, he boldly asked, "Senior, I agreed to be your slave for 10 million years. May I avenge first? I'm afraid my enemy might reach their end by that time." He spoke sincerely as he truly thought this way. Though 10 million years sounded arduous, following such a transcendent being even as a slave would surely yield benefits. Alone in that world, what hatred drives you so urgently? Guan picked up the axe, splitting wood as he answered nonchalantly. Lewin gritted his teeth. "That person killed someone important to me. I must avenge them. With your current cultivation level, you can't exact revenge." Guan's tone remained indifferent, yet carried an undeniable authority. Lewin fell silent. He began weighing the pros and cons, contemplating whether to forcibly escape, but doing so would violate his principles. Moreover, he might not even be able to escape. "Build yourself a place to live on the island," Guan said leisurely, hearing which Lewin showed an expression of unwillingness. Even though unwilling, he didn't choose to act against Guan. He stepped forward and asked beside Guan, "Senior, may I help you first?" Guan did not refuse, handing him the axe, and instructed him to chop the wood piled up in the courtyard before turning to leave. At the courtyard gate, he stopped and seemed to remember something, turning back to Lewin with a smile. "I almost forgot, live as a mortal on the island from now on." As he finished speaking, he waved his sleeve towards Lewin, who couldn't avoid it. He only felt a gentle breeze on his face. The next second, his expression changed drastically as his mana dissipated. Not only that, but even his cultivation level vanished. He could no longer view his internal state, nor did he have divine sense, and even his chi power became feeble. Before he could speak, Guin left the courtyard. Lewin opened his mouth but ultimately chose to continue splitting wood. Walking on the mountain path, Guin showed a look of appreciation. Though Lewin had entered the demon Dao, his character was far steadier than Wei Yi's. Wei Yi remained naive and idealistic due to his experiences, whereas every choice Lewin made was well considered. Thinking back to when the two first arrived at the Heavenly Dao, Lewin was much more lively compared to Wei Yi. As time passed, it seemed their personalities had swapped. Guin started to look forward to what waves Lewin would stir upon returning to the 3,000 great worlds in 10 million years. He didn't calculate to leave himself some suspense. And so, day by day passed. Lewin, having lost his cultivation level, couldn't escape even if he wanted. He hoped his demeanor would prompt Guin to release him sooner, but as time went by, even his greatest patience was wearing thin. 10 years later. On a stormy night, Lewin stood before the pavilion of the courtyard, gritting his teeth. "Senior, I beseech you once more, release me to go back. After I take my revenge, I swear I will return." Boom, the sound of thunder erupted, overpowering even the noise of the rain. Guin's voice drifted from inside the house. "With your current capability, how do you plan to take revenge? Do you know what kind of place this is or how you'd return after going back? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 922, The Legend of Central Heaven. Upon hearing Guin's words, Lewin did not hesitate. He firmly said, "Even without my cultivation level, I will find a way to take revenge. I have a backup plan somewhere." "You want to rely on that magical treasure?" Guin's voice floated out, and Lewin's pupils suddenly shrank, his body involuntarily trembling. He was truly shocked. How did this senior know he was hiding a supreme treasure? Was he bluffing? "No matter what you rely on, after saying so for thousands of years, then you must stay for thousands of years." Guin's words rang out again, causing Lewin to furrow his brows, his expression turning grim. Lewin raised his hand, wanting to open the door and enter, but his hands dared not lay on the door. Even if his cultivation level was still there, he wouldn't be a match for this senior. If he offended the other party, the other might directly kill him. If he died, what was the point of revenge? After struggling for a while, Lewin ultimately lowered his head and left. The torrential rain soaked him, and his figure quickly disappeared into the night. After that night, Lewin never mentioned revenge again. Every day he would find Guin waiting for him to assign tasks. Guin never let him idle, making him chop wood continuously. Lewin did not refuse and chopped wood every day. He noticed that despite all the wood he chopped, there weren't many new buildings on the island. He understood that this was a test from the senior. The senior saved him, not to merely toy with him. Unable to return for revenge was indeed regretful, but at least he was alive. He did not resent Guin for it, maintaining reverence and gratitude in his heart. The longer he stayed on the island, the fewer stray thoughts Lewin had. He gradually found meaning in staying, choosing to start over even though his cultivation level was lost. Thus 1,000 years swiftly passed. Lewin continued chopping wood. His cultivation level recovered somewhat but was far from its peak. Guin most of the time stayed within the pavilion, and Lewin dared not disturb him recklessly. Until one day a cultivator flew in, landing on the island. Lewin, who was meditating while facing the sea, stood up to look at him. "Are you a human race member? Why are you alone on this isolated island?" The cultivator frowned and asked. He appeared to be in his 30s, wearing a cyan robe and looked stern. As soon as he frowned, Lewin felt the overwhelming pressure. Alone? Lewin couldn't discern the other's cultivation level. His intuition told him that the person before him was stronger than anyone he had met, excluding the senior on the island. Such a formidable presence couldn't sense the senior's existence. How high must the senior's cultivation level be? "I crossed space, was severely injured and lost my cultivation level resting on this island," Lewin answered, not revealing the presence of Guin. The cyan-robed Taoist immediately understood and said, "So you are an ascender. No wonder you are so weak. Your luck was quite good to land on this island. If you landed elsewhere, surviving would have been difficult. Ascender. Lewin caught onto the critical information and hurriedly asked, "May I ask, Senior, where is this place in the heavens?" "This is Central Heaven. Don't know if you have heard about it. Over the long years, there have always been cultivators from the lower realms ascending. Nowadays the world is not peaceful. Staying on this island can be a blessing." The cyan-robed Taoist answered. Lewin felt as if struck by lightning, eyes wide open. Central Heaven. He had heard of this place from an elder. It was said Central Heaven was an immortal realm every cultivator aspired to reach. Only by ascending to Central Heaven could one hope to join the immortal class. The greatest wish of that elder was to ascend to Central Heaven. He actually arrived in Central Heaven. No wonder the spiritual energy here was so abundant. The cyan-robed Taoist slightly shook his head, then took out a secret manual and tossed it onto the beach. He leapt, turning into a sword light and disappearing into the sky. Lewin snapped back to reality, picking up the secret manual. Supreme Qi Absorption Technique? Lewin read the words on the cover, secretly amazed that the human race's language in Central Heaven was the same as in the realms he came from. The word supreme made him feel something extraordinary. He showed a hint of delight as if obtaining a treasure, turning to head back to his residence. Over the past 1,000 years, with constant repairs, his residence now had 2 stories. He lived on the 2nd floor, with the 1st floor storing exotic treasures he collected, most washed ashore by the sea, considered rare material by him. That turn marked the passing of 10,000 years. 10,000 years later, Central Heaven was still dominated by the human race. All beings of heaven and earth feared humans who were insatiably expanding their territory, leaving nothing but massacre in their wake. The territory of the demon race was surpassed by the human race for the first time, especially with the supreme demon god seeking out demon race great powers everywhere. More human race cultivators passed through the Wuxia continent, while demon beings grew scarcer. Even disciples confined to the continent could sense the dire world trend. Human race cultivators' arrogance was thinly veiled, felt even in conversation. By now, humans firmly believed themselves to be the masters of heaven and earth. Guan stood on a cliff, gazing towards distant cities. At the present, a human cultivator was lecturing at the Taoist field of the beginningless. This was the first instance of such a situation. Though Wuxia disciples were inwardly uncomfortable, they refrained from showing it. An innate golden immortal dares to lecture. Those disciples truly have patience. Shenzhen came beside Guan, remarked in amazement. Now, all second-generation disciples had achieved innate golden immortal status, and exceptional disciples from each generation had as well. In total, there were over 100 innate golden immortals within the beginningless, a remarkable number, making it a powerful force among the 3,000 great worlds. What of it? Even among those of the same realm, it's worthwhile to listen to others' Taoist techniques. Everyone's path is different. If someone is willing to lecture, it's a good fortune, Guan lightly chuckled. Today, his mood was fine as he decided to abolish Luan's cultivation level and begin teaching him cultivation anew. In comparison to millions of years, the years Luan wasted were insignificant. You earlier said that humanity would decline at its zenith. Can it be considered at its peak now? Shenzhen turned to observe Guan's profile, curiously asking. Guan lifted his head to gaze at the celestial vault, replying, "It can be considered so. Soon, an astonishing battle will erupt, marking a turning point for Central Heaven." Hearing this, Shenzhen showed an expression of anticipation, wondering if the immortal gods would intervene. At dusk in the courtyard. "Senior you," Lewin trembled all over, painfully looking at Guan. Even his resolute spirit was filled with resentment at this moment, as Guan had again, with a sweep of his sleeve, dissipated his cultivation level. The supreme Qi absorption technique was far more powerful than his previous cultivation technique. The progress of millennia made him very happy, but today, all was for naught. If Guan did not permit him to have a cultivation level, why didn't he say so earlier? Must he toy with him? That was millennia of work. Just like that gone. Lewin clenched his fists, eyes red, glaring at Guan. Guan sat on the steps, leisurely with both hands on the ground, smiling. "Your cultivation technique is too inferior. How about I teach you how to cultivate? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 923, Battle with the Demon God. Hearing Guan's words, Lewin, who was previously angry, froze for a moment as immense joy quickly enveloped his heart. The grievance of 10,000 years of effort dissipating vanished entirely, and he instinctively wanted to kneel before Guan, but he hesitated just as he bent his knees. He carefully observed Guan, and under the twilight, Guan's face was obscured by the eaves, making it difficult for him to discern his exact expression. Could this be yet another jest? Guan said leisurely, "Before you came to Central Heaven, your cultivation technique was already a mistaken path. You should have felt that once you get angry, it's very hard to control your emotions. You think there's another force manipulating you, but in truth, no one is plotting against you. It's just that your cultivation technique is flawed. It was a trap from the start. As for the Supreme Chi Absorption Technique, its creator will fall soon, and all who are bound by cause and effect with it will suffer the punishment of heaven. Counting this way, I've actually saved you 3 times." Luan widened his eyes, his expression shifting between gloom and brightness. After a moment of thought, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed heavily toward Guan. "The great grace of the senior, this junior will never forget." Luan bowed his head, speaking in a deep voice. Guan carelessly replied, "I saved you, taught you, not for repayment, just out of interest. No matter how great your achievements will be in the future, they have nothing to do with me, and you must not reveal our relationship. Just pretend this never happened, understand?" Luan lifted his head, looking at Guan with confusion. Why does this sound like a scene between Master Pewdie and Sun Wukong? Luan thought secretly. Even after spending so many years together, he still didn't know how to respond, as he still couldn't grasp Guan's personality and couldn't gauge Guan's likes or dislikes. In daily life, Guan always smiled gently, but when abolishing his cultivation level, he wouldn't hold back, and it was always very sudden. As Guan raised his right hand, Luan's body shrank in fear, instinctively wanting to retreat. Just as he steadied his posture, Guan pointed his index finger at him, immobilizing him entirely, with different figures manifesting and changing stances in his widened pupils. Just like that, Luan embarked on a brand new cultivation path. Guan created a set of unique cultivation techniques, divine skills, escape skills, and more for him. His days became enriched, filled with passion and vigor. Luan cultivated on the beach, accompanied by the sun and moon. Immersed in it, time flew by quickly. After receiving Guan's true teaching, Luan's cultivation speed far surpassed before, completely dispelling the dissatisfaction in his heart. Compared to his current cultivation, everything from before was not worth mentioning. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed by. On this day, Luan was cultivating beside a sea turtle, facing the sea, when suddenly he opened his eyes, frowning. He looked toward the far end of the sea horizon, seeing the celestial vault gradually turning red, and the wind between heaven and earth was intensifying, with spiritual energy becoming restless, making him feel uneasy. The sea turtle beside him opened its eyes, protruding its head and extending its neck, seemingly trying to see what exactly was happening far away. Unfortunately, with Luan's cultivation level, he couldn't detect the source of that terrifying aura. After watching for a while, he closed his eyes, intending to continue his cultivation. But the aura from afar grew increasingly overwhelming, preventing him from calming his heart, with fear and uneasiness in his heart intensifying. Thinking it over, Luan got up and walked toward the mountain. The mountain wasn't high, and it wasn't long before he arrived within the courtyard. He did not see Guan, nor could he sense Guan's presence, but he wasn't surprised. His inability to sense was due to his own insufficient cultivation level. He respectfully bowed toward the pavilion, saying, "Senior, where does this pressure come from? What is about to happen?" Several breaths later, Guan's voice emerged from within the pavilion. "The immortal gods are besieging the Supreme Demon God." Supreme Demon God? Supreme? Luan seemed to think of something, his expression changing slightly, cautiously asking, "Could it be that the Supreme Chi Absorption technique I previously cultivated originated from the Supreme Demon God?" The words Demon God did not sound like good news. He also remembered Guan saying that all those bound by cause and effect with the creator of the Supreme Chi Absorption technique would suffer the punishment of heaven. This compelled him to sympathize with the cultivator who passed on the technique to him. Even though they only chatted briefly, meeting at a whim, that person shared the cultivation technique with him. Such goodwill was rarely encountered. Even though he sympathized, he had no means to offer help. He certainly couldn't ask Guan to save that person. Such an act was too absurd. He was not like his old friend Wei Yi. When he thought of Wei Yi, the gloom in Luan's heart lifted entirely. When he returned to the human world, he would show Wei Yi how formidable he had become. To this day, his relationship with Wei Yi remained good. However, with the eternal conflict between righteousness and demons, They could only maintain contact covertly. Following Guan's cultivation, the demonic chi within him had dissipated. Now, anyone who saw him would find it hard to determine he was a demon cultivator, making him very much look forward to Wei Ye's expression upon seeing him. Luan still wished to inquire more but thought it over, ultimately deciding to bow and take his leave. When it comes to matters involving the immortal gods, he felt it was wise to ask less to avoid inviting trouble. After he left, Guan took a step back into the Wuxia continent, where a play was about to unfold in the city. He found it very intriguing and wanted to witness it with his own eyes. Because many disciples emulated Guan by writing books, the stories circulating the continent were highly abundant. Therefore, some disciples had a spur-of-the-moment idea to enact these wonderful stories, experiencing the emotions of the characters in the process, and the viewers found it enjoyable. As a result, it became a cultural tradition, unique at least within Central Heaven, with only Wuxia having such a culture. The battle between the immortal gods and the supreme demon god was earth-shattering, with the battle's overwhelming pressure constantly spreading, eventually covering the entire Central Heaven. Above the clouds, Li Xuanmiao and a group of immortal gods gazed down at the great battle unfolding below, the land engulfed in rolling dust, with lightning intersecting everywhere and gales howling as if there were a great dragon whirling around. Upon closer inspection, one could vaguely see more than 10 interwoven figures. At the edge of the battlefield stood towering figures, with the celestial Tao golden light forming a grand formation, isolating this battlefield. Though the ground was sinking, it did not extend to the mountains beyond the formation. That Prince Taihao is so powerful, I remember he's the youngest son of heaven, right? Yes, indeed the most junior son of heaven, but for him to earn the name Taihao reflects the emperor's high regard for him. Not only is Prince Taihao formidable, but those immortal gods are also very strong. Judging by their coordination and divine skills, they seem to come from the same immortal sect? Looks like the supreme demon god will end here. The immortal gods in the clouds discussed, while Li Xuanmiao fixated on the rolling dust below, his pupils reflecting the posture of the supreme demon god wielding the demon soldiers. For some reason, Li Xuanmiao felt a sense of unease, as if something dreadful was about to occur. At this moment, a purple light emerged from deep within the dust below, and immediately the entire world darkened. The surprised immortal gods instinctively looked up, soon fixing their eyes on the celestial vault above. Strange eyes filled the firmament, varying in size, yet each identical, with violet pupils, cold and enigmatic. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 924. The beginning of the myth on the beach. Luan, who had just sat down not long ago, suddenly felt something and opened his eyes abruptly. He looked up to see purple eyes all over the sky, causing him to shiver with fear. What is this? Luan widened his eyes, muttering to himself, his voice full of terror. When he saw the immortal emperor's eye in the sky, the mana within him froze all at once, even his soul tightened, an indescribable feeling that made him feel insignificant. Is this the power of Central Heaven? Unbelievable. Facing such power, he felt only awe in his heart. Whether it was the power of the immortal gods or that of the supreme demon god, he did not know. As he was pondering, a burst of golden light blazed across the celestial vault, causing him to squint. Immediately afterwards, he saw the purple eyes all over the sky disappear, and the vast golden light descended like heavenly might. He saw an incomparably huge golden vertical eye, far larger than the previous purple eyes, so large that the entire celestial vault couldn't contain it. Luan was deeply shocked, as if seeing a face in the outer universe spying on the middle heaven world, with the whole of Central Heaven no bigger than one eye of that existence. Just thinking about it made him shiver from head to foot. The golden vertical eye gazed upon the human world, and at this moment, all the Wuxia disciples on Wuxia continent were looking up at this vertical eye. Guan, who was watching a play within the city, saw the disciples on stage being drawn away by the heavenly might, stopping their performance. He shook his head slightly and rose to leave. His departure caught the attention of some disciples, who thought Guan was going to investigate the situation. After leaving the theater, Guan returned to the mountain of no end. Shenzhen was also watching the golden vertical eye on the celestial vault. She did not question Guan, for his return meant that the anomaly in the sky could not affect Wuxia. She stared at the golden vertical eye, beginning to deduce, but unfortunately she couldn't see anything. The golden vertical eye surveyed all things in heaven and earth, shaking the hearts of all living beings. It seemed to scrutinize all existence on this land, making all living beings feel fear and gradually lowering their heads, not daring to meet its gaze. For a long time, the golden light dissipated, and the heavenly might suppressing all beings vanished. When all beings looked up again, the golden vertical eye had disappeared, and the terrifying aura of the supreme demon god was also gone. This battle seemed to have ended, and the entire world fell into silence. 100 years later, on a lonely island, Guan sat on a turtle shell, guiding Luan to cultivate a set of fist techniques. He repeated the punches, throwing them one by one, seemingly without any special attributes, yet he did not feel bored. While practicing, Luan turned to look at Guan and curiously asked, "Elder, was the supreme demon god killed by the immortal gods?" He had harbored this doubt for a long time and finally couldn't resist asking today. Guan was holding a book and he replied casually, "Didn't completely die, but now it's worse than death. The supreme demon god was forcefully suppressed by Emperor Taihao, his physical form annihilated and his soul thrown into the heavenly prison, continuously tormented by endless celestial punishment. Thus, all powers of the heavenly Emperor Taihao were reclaimed, the immortal gods who had once been loyal to him began to be investigated, and each day some of them had their immortal positions stripped and were cast into the heavenly prison or reincarnation. One day in heaven equaled a year on earth, and now the celestial court remained in turmoil as the news of the supreme demon god being vanquished by the immortal gods continued to spread through central heaven. Many years later, tales of Taihao slaying the supreme would circulate in central heaven. By then, Taihao would have become the celestial emperor, while the supreme would be depicted as the demon ancestor, the most evil existence in central heaven since antiquity. And those who cultivate the supreme chi absorption technique? Luan asked further. They will die in the future celestial tribulations. This answer secretly startled Luan. Could the heavenly Tao control the celestial tribulation? Guan followed up, because of the supreme demon god, humans in this realm will be hunted by all races under heaven and earth. If any creatures pass by this island in the future, you'd best hide to avoid getting involved. Luan asked in surprise, "Elder, what about you? Aren't you part of the human race?" Guan did not answer, which made Luan's heart skip a beat. He suddenly realized that he didn't know anything about the elder, not even the elder's name, let alone his true form. Habitually, he presumed all sorts of dangerous situations. The more he thought, the more frightened he became. However, remembering that without Guan's help, he would have already been dead, he immediately let go of his burdens and focused on practicing his punches. This set of fist techniques seemed ordinary, but its sorcery was profound. With each circulation of the week of energy, his physique became stronger, filling him with anticipation for mastering this fist technique. The sea turtle beneath Guan poked its head out, stretching its neck and turning to look. Upon seeing Guan, it retreated back in fright. Luan secretly marveled at this scene. This turtle had powerful chi blood, which even made Luan feel alarmed. Yet it was so timid that it wouldn't fight. Whenever it saw a living thing, it would retract into its shell. It truly was a curiosity. Previously, he thought this turtle was raised by the elder. Now, it seemed the turtle, like him, was trapped in this place. The sun shone brightly as the world and its forces changed like the shifting clouds. Hundreds of years later, the news of the supreme demon god being annihilated spread completely, and the world entered even greater chaos as the demon race began slaughtering humans on a large scale. Although humans had high comprehension, their years of cultivation were far less than that of the world's great powers, and without the supreme demon god, they were unable to withstand the wrath of all living beings. In less than 1,000 years, humans were nearly exterminated. Fortunately, some immortal gods stood out in time, announcing to all living beings the prohibition of further killings of humans, thus putting an end to this catastrophe. Even with the warning of the immortal gods in place, the demon race still held profound apprehension towards humans and closely monitored them to prevent their resurgence. The practice of demons eating humans continued daily, albeit not on such a widespread scale. Rumble, thunderclouds rolled, and one bolt of heavenly lightning after another fell, striking the stormy waves, twisting the space above the ocean. A dark purple spatial rift appeared, growing rapidly, suspended between the sky and sea. Two figures stepped out from within, Zhang Buku and Suyu. The two moved forward in the air, with thousands of lightning bolts falling on them, unable to pose any threat. Suyu walked in the air, looking around and raising an eyebrow. Such a heavy, murderous aura. It seems central heaven just went through a calamity. Zhang Buku showed no expression. He wore a large robe, with hair reaching the robe's hem, looking more inscrutable than Suyu. It's the same old war between humans and demons. It seems Central Heaven is no different from the Great Thousand World. Zhang Buku spoke coldly. He once belonged to a half-human, half-demon race and held great disdain for the hatred between the demon race and the human race. He couldn't understand why two races capable of immortal cultivation had to keep slaughtering each other. Later he ceased contemplating it. To him, humans and demons were the same. If they dared block his path, he wouldn't hold back. Where do we go next? Suyu turned to look at him, asking with a cheerful smile. After many years of cultivation in the underworld, their relationship had reversed, with Suyu now taking Zhang Buku as the backbone, acting according to Zhang Buku's will. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 925, Inch Island. First, let's meet the great power of the demon race in this realm and see what they are capable of. Zhang Buku stared ahead, answering expressionlessly. Upon hearing this, Suyu's smile became even brighter as he eagerly anticipated Zhang Buku showcasing his strength now. He wanted to see if Central Heaven, known as the center of the heavenly Tao, could withstand Zhang Buku's brilliance. The two stepped forward into the air, their figures started to shimmer, constantly moving, and soon disappeared beyond the celestial vault. Zhang Buku's arrival was spotted by Guan, who was picking medicinal herbs. Watching the current Zhang Buku, he felt a tinge of emotion. Truly he seemed like a different person. The Zhang Buku now possessed the demeanor of a great power, and carried an intimidating aura. After the conclusion of the battle between immortals and demons, the Nine Nether Emperor was severely wounded, yet the Celestial Emperor bestowed him a chance. The cost was the Celestial Court beginning to take over the underworld. As Central Heaven developed, the Celestial Court also attacked the underworld, establishing the order of ghosts and gods. This time Zhang Buku came to Central Heaven as a rightful representative of the underworld to spread the Tao, leaving behind the legend of the 6 paths of reincarnation. As long as he didn't go too far, the immortal gods wouldn't stop him. If the future remains unchanged, Zhang Buku will become an ancient myth of Central Heaven, his name to be remembered forever. Regardless of how one sees it, Zhang Buku is considered to have attained the Tao. Guan no longer needs to be so concerned for him. It's worth mentioning that Zhang Buku has already found his father Zhang Chuanqiu in reincarnation. Unfortunately, Zhang Chuanqiu has gone through countless cycles of reincarnation, and no longer remembers him. Now, he's trying to find a way for Zhang Buku to recall the memories of that lifetime. Senior brother Zhang, who would have thought we'd have the chance to meet again. Guan spoke to himself, a smile on his face as images from long ago surfaced in his eyes. The ghost mother of ephemera, curious, asked, "Senior brother Zhang? Master, do you have other senior brothers?" All along she only heard Guan acknowledge Li Ya as his senior brother. Now hearing of another senior brother Zhang, naturally piqued her curiosity. "Yes, I have 3 senior brothers. Back then, along with senior brother Li Ya, the 4 of us were menial disciples in the profound valley of the outer Taishan sect." Guan began to recount the past. The story was plain, yet to the ghost mother of ephemera, it felt very heartwarming. Zhang Chuanqiu was steady, Liya was cold, Meng Lang lived up to his name, reminding her of the scenes of them playfully bickering. She sighed within, realizing her master truly valued past connections. What did these 3 have to deserve such attention from him? In her view, her master must be an entity that has lived countless years. In this lifetime he wasn't even reincarnated. Surely, back in the Taishan sect he was concealing his cultivation level. With unparalleled cultivation, yet able to calmly associate with mortals, what a broad mindset. She always felt it was her master who accommodated Li Ya. Li Ya lacked the qualities she found impressive. Without her master, she doubted Li Ya could even reach the Zizai immortal realm. Of course, she thought the same about herself, which was why she held Guan in such high esteem. Guan could sense her inner thoughts but never pointed them out. Everyone has their own ideas kept secret. Without voicing them, who could blame them? He casually recounted Zhang Buku's story as well, which impressed the ghost mother of ephemera more than Zhang Chunqius. Half human, half demon, rejected by both races, wandering aimlessly, stirred deep sympathy within the ghost mother of ephemera, reminding her of herself. "So, Zhang Buku came to Central Heaven and even resurrected your senior brother?" she curiously asked. Guan nodded with a smile. She sighed, "I wonder how that cultivator Zhang Chuanqiu would react upon learning your true cultivation level." Imagining herself in her master's shoes, she realized he truly had great patience, a quality she should learn. The two conversed as they continued collecting medicinal herbs. Once Guan finished harvesting herbs, he left alone, with the ghost mother of Ephemera watching him leave with a basket in hand. Guan walked leisurely through the fields, continuing into the forest until he reached the isolated island where Luan resided. He walked down the mountain path seeing Luan cultivating on the beach. Setting all else aside, Luan's attitude towards cultivation greatly satisfied him. With perseverance and constant effort, along with his Saint Tao intent, how could Luan not become remarkable? Guan came to the side of a sea turtle and reached out to stroke its shell. Though the turtle seemed afraid of him, it never left the island. Luan thought it was trapped, but in reality it chose to stay. Perhaps Guan's Tao intent made it feel that staying would bring Fuyuan. Though the turtle couldn't speak, its spiritual intelligence was not shallow, harboring its own thoughts. Do you think I should name this island? Guan spoke suddenly, startling Luan, who opened his eyes and turned to look at him. Luan's gaze was filled with resentment. Guan always appeared unpredictably, impossible to detect. Though had been startled before, each time left his heart trembling. He worried that more shocks like these might lead him to demonic possession. Despite feeling wronged inside, he didn't dare express it, following Guan's words and suggesting, "How about Inch Island?" Guan found amusement in the name but appeared puzzled, asking, "Why the name Inch? Because you resemble Master Pewdie? And aren't you forbidding me from revealing your name?" Thinking to himself, Luan awkwardly replied, "It just came to mind. Inch is good. Within an inch lies the world. Within an inch is the Great Tao. The Great Tao is vast yet can also be small. From now on this island shall be called Inch Island." Guan smiled gently, laughing lightly. He wasn't afraid of coincidental names. Chinese mythology should be fictional, even if there were real figures they couldn't be that powerful. Otherwise, how could the great infinite demon ancestor toy with Earth so easily? Noticing Guan agreed to the name, Luan's expression turned peculiar. "Continue cultivating. Make the most of your time. Don't wait till you leave, then regret not cherishing the present," Guan said lazily, then turned to walk in another direction. He planned to fish on another part of Inch Island. Here fishing was truly fishing. He was growing fond of this island. He didn't intend to inform the Wuxia disciples of the island's existence, wanting a place to be alone. Watching Guan's back, Luan thought this island would become a holy land someday. He stopped pondering, continuing his cultivation. The senior was right. He had to seize the time. Even if a million years felt far off, he didn't want to miss the chance. Since following Guan in cultivation, he realized this million-year journey wasn't torment but a rare opportunity hard to come by again. A million years later, Wei Yi should still be alive. Maybe Wei Yi would become a leader of the righteous Tao. Then, when he sought Wei Yi out again, he would surely surprise him greatly. The mere thought of it made Lu Angwang's mouth curve upwards uncontrollably. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 926. Emerging from nowhere after the supreme demon god was annihilated, Central Heaven entered another high-speed development phase. The celestial Tao destiny continued to rise, and every few years, astonishing new beings were born. After experiencing a great massacre, the human race's destiny was severed. Countless human cultivators died during the celestial tribulation, and in terms of talent, each generation was weaker than the last, transforming a once powerful race that struck fear in all living beings into something weak. Because of this weakness, the demon race lowered their guard and no longer focused on the human race, and internal competition began within the demon race. The 7 demon emperors of the demon race each occupied territories, recruited soldiers and expanded their forces rapidly. As the number of demon soldiers increased, their territories bordered each other, inevitably leading to conflicts. Thus, internal strife began within the demon race. In this grand context, great powers started to establish other races, with the human race's former might still fresh in their memories. Taoist techniques began to flourish, various races were born, and the entire world presented a vibrant vitality. Years flew by like a shuttle. The 10-million-year period for Luan arrived. Now he had achieved the level of heaven-encompassing free immortal, just one step away from an innate golden immortal. Such a rapid breakthrough speed was indeed swift. Most importantly, his understanding of the great Tao had surpassed the majority of innate golden immortals. In the future, his path of cultivation would only become smoother. On this day at noon, Luan was summoned to the courtyard by Guan. Luan did not see Guan in the courtyard. He looked at the tightly closed door, his face darkened, having already prepared mentally. He took a deep breath, stood before the door of the pavilion, and paid his respects respectfully. The 10 million-year period is up. You should go back now. Gather your things. Gu An's voice floated out from inside the pavilion, the tone calm. Luan immediately knelt down and kowtowed heavily 3 times towards the pavilion. He raised his head and asked, "If I ascend to Central Heaven in the future, may I visit Inch Island to see you? If you can find it, you can naturally come." Hearing Gu An's words, Luan beamed with a smile. He turned and left, his face full of vigor. After these millions of years of cultivation, he had been completely reborn, not just in cultivation level but in character as well. After the time of 1 stick of incense, Luan, having packed his belongings, stood in front of his building. Looking at the building that had accompanied him for millions of years, his eyes were full of reluctance. "After you go back, don't be so extreme, don't trust others too easily, and definitely don't stray off the right path." A voice came from behind him. He saw a blue-robed youth with a turtle shell on his back approaching. The youth had a handsome face, fair skin like a scholar, exuding an elegant aura. He was the timid sea turtle who took human form millions of years ago and became extremely close to Luan. Luan had shared all his experiences with him. Luan turned to the blue-robed youth and laughed, "Xuanwu, you better wait for me. The next time we meet, we must settle who's superior." The blue-robed youth called Xuanwu chuckled softly, "I can't possibly lose to you since I've always been cultivating with the master." The two exchanged a glance and both laughed with high spirits, their sharpness evident. Suddenly, a black crack appeared behind Luan, and a strong suction pulled him directly inside, causing him to look panicked. Xuanwu saw this scene and couldn't help shaking his head with an amused smile. The master still loved to scare Luan like this. "Xuanwu, prepare to go fishing with me." Gu An's voice floated down from the mountain, and Xuanwu's expression instantly changed from relaxed and carefree to one full of flattering smiles. "All right, master, I'm coming right away." Xuanwu immediately rushed away quickly. The golden light shimmered in the forest of Inch Island as the sunlight poured down. The ocean stretched endlessly, and Inch Island, like a leaf floating on the sea's surface, seemed so inconspicuous, always at risk of being swallowed by the ocean. After Luan left, Gu An's life became more peaceful. He no longer taught others in cultivation but began to gain enlightenment himself. In the ensuing years, Wuxia disciples were discovered by outsiders for hiding something, and in Zizai, adhering to the rules set by Guan, expelled those disciples who were discovered. Some disciples wanted to leave Wuxia on their own. Having heard too much news from the outside world, they also wanted to venture out for themselves. Every disciple who left Wuxia was personally sent off by Zizai, with the warning to never reveal the cause and effect of Wuxia. Otherwise, no matter where they were, even separated by all heavens, he would clean up the sect. As the Wuxia disciples ventured into the red dust of Central Heaven, the fate of Central Heaven began to show some changes. Such changes were insignificant to the lofty immortal gods. 100 million years became less lengthy for Central Heaven. After 100 million years, the native creatures of Central Heaven achieved the strongest cultivation level of Miaojin Daluo immortal realm, and Taoist lineages began to rise. After tens of millions of years of evolution, the Wuxia continent remained bustling, but now with fewer Wuxia disciples. Here, mortal generations began to inherit the land while Wuxia disciples were integrated within, always hidden. Mountain of No End was shrouded with immortal mist, inaccessible to mortals, and those who forced their way in would find themselves diverted, unable to enter the Taoist field of the beginningless. Now Central Heaven was fully developed, with new ascenders arriving almost daily, and great powers going to outer heaven. The universe outside Central Heaven could directly connect to chaos, sparking legends of chaos to begin circulating in the human world. On this day, Guan was sitting in the courtyard playing with a stone, which was one of the original stones of Central Heaven with a long history. Investigation into it could reveal the heavenly Tao behind Central Heaven. The heavenly Tao was created by the Celestial Emperor, but to Guan even the Celestial Emperor couldn't see through the entire cause and effect of the heavenly Tao. Perhaps it was because the heavenly Tao originated from Hongmeng. A figure walked into the courtyard bringing a fragrance. The visitor was none other than Fairy Yaoxian. Fairy Yaoxian remained elegant, as beautiful as a celestial immortal, with an ethereal aura. She approached Guan and turned to look at Shenzhen, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. Feeling her gaze, Shenzhen opened his eyes and seeing her expression, knew what she meant to express. Hence, Shenzhen nodded to Fairy Yaoxian and then got up to leave, giving the two a space for solitude. Fairy Yaoxian was the mother of sin, her existence extended across ages. Sometimes she would guide the second-generation disciples, for whom Shenzhen had much respect. After Shenzhen left, Fairy Yaoxian looked at Guan and said, "Recently, a great emperor has emerged in the world, stunning the heavens. He is called the Emperor of Eternal Life. I want to go and see." Guan replied casually, "If you want to go, then go, just don't reveal Wuxi's existence." Fairy Yaoxian stared deeply at him, holding back countless questions in her heart, but ultimately did not ask. She turned to leave. With that turn, thousands of years passed. Thousands of years later, fallen leaves filled the courtyard. Fairy Yaoxian returned, while Guan still sat there admiring the stone. Shenzhen saw Fairy Yaoxian return and immediately got up to leave. Fairy Yaoxian came before Guan and said, "That Emperor of Eternal Life looks exactly like him, even his temperament, but I can be sure he is not him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 927. Slaughtering all Wuxia. Hearing Fairy Yaoxian's words, Guan looked up at her and asked with a smile, "Then what do you think it means to be him?" He was not surprised at Fairy Yaoxian's confusion, for when he inherited the memories of the second life of the Emperor of Eternal Life, he saw Fairy Yaoxian had come to find him. In the memories, Fairy Yaoxian traveled a long distance to listen to him lecturing with other cultivators, and after the lecture she sought him out. She did not express any feelings but rather asked some questions and then left calmly. Now, the person known across Central Heaven as the Emperor of Eternal Life is indeed Guan, merely the Guan in the lifespan reincarnation. Once the lifespan reincarnation ends, the life of the Emperor of Eternal Life begins. As long as Guan does not appear before the Emperor of Eternal Life, this reincarnated life will become true. Fairy Yaoxian looked at Guan but did not answer, only her eyes showed some lingering resentment. Guan tossed the stone in his hand to her and said, "This stone is one of the original stones of Central Heaven, containing the true essence of the heavenly Tao. By scrutinizing it, you may realize the wonders of the great Tao creating the universe and the world. Perhaps you can find the essence of your own existence through it." Fairy Yaoxian looked at the stone in her hand, her brows furrowed. This stone looks so ordinary, can it truly help comprehend the heavenly Tao? Guan stood up and said with a smile, "The Emperor of Eternal Life you desire is in your heart, is that not enough? Originally you did not live for someone, you also have your own Tao-seeking goals, do you not?" Having said that, Guan stepped forward, brushing past her shoulder. Fairy Yaoxian lowered her head, and after Guan walked out of the courtyard, she clenched the stone tightly in her hand and turned to leave. The Emperor of Eternal Life is renowned throughout the world, his prestige immense, but to Central Heaven he is not yet the most dazzling existence. As Guan walked down the mountain road, he could hear the name most frequently mentioned by the beings on the continent. A dragon. Dragon Emperor. This was the first dragon born in Central Heaven, born full with the Taiqing golden immortal realm perfection, its dragon might vast, causing countless races to feel instinctive fear. This dragon also has an associated magical treasure, a dragon spear. Having been born for less than 10,000 years, it crossed into the heaven-opening Daluo immortal realm, achieving Miaojin Daluo immortal in less than 100,000 years. Compared to Central Heaven's history, it is still very young, but it has already ranked among the top in the world. The Dragon Emperor is very arrogant, having already declared he will become the strongest in Central Heaven. He will challenge each dojo in the world to prove himself. The news spread across the world, reaching this continent as well. Guan, however, is not interested in the Dragon Emperor, for the future of the Dragon Emperor is already within his sight. The Dragon Emperor is destined to yield under the Celestial Court. After ranking in the immortal class, the Dragon Emperor will lose his brilliance, just like those immortal gods, forever a puppet of the heavenly Tao rules, forced to endure even when his descendants are slaughtered. Central Heaven, a land of heroes, Guan finds it quite amusing as if watching a series of films. Though he will not partake in worldly conflicts, should outsiders attempt to destroy the Wuxia continent, he would strike, for should the disciples be forced to take action, they would undoubtedly expose their cultivation level. In these circumstances, the continent gradually spread tales of immortals, with the mountain of no end shrouded in immortal mist, preventing outsiders from entering. Unconsciously, rumors arose saying an immortal mountain, inhabited by immortals, concealed within the mist. The Wuxia disciples discovered the ancestor protecting the continent, making them more relaxed, for as the Central Heaven spirits grew stronger, they also feared strong enemies invading, forcing them to reveal their true cultivation. With the ancestors' protection they can exert themselves without worry. Some disciples even started crafting legends of the ancestor. No one dared mention the name of ancestor Master Wuxia, but stories of immortals based on his experiences spread widely across the continent. To date, 3/10 of the disciples have left the continent, and most disciples left of their own will. Guan saw some Wuxia disciples establishing schools, successfully gaining a foothold in Central Heaven. It's worth noting that despite Central Heaven's development to this day, no native being has ascended to immortality, and there will be an even greater conflict in the future. Though the supreme demon god has cast a shadow over Central Heaven, the destruction he brought was not much. The human race flourished despite his ferocity, without any powerful force treating the world as a chessboard for conflict. Tao Emperor, are you finally unable to hold back? Guan muttered to himself, a smile of anticipation appearing on his face. Amidst the vast immortal mist stood a towering peak. At its summit lay a courtyard where Wuxia, dressed in black, was practicing before a great cauldron. Inside the cauldron were 3 large incense sticks, from which blue smoke rose, swirling above the courtyard. Wuxia frowned deeply, a faint golden pattern appeared on his forehead, and his mana began to escape, with a Dharma aspect manifesting. The Dharma aspect bore a domineering demeanor, radiating an unrivaled aura. Suddenly, a figure appeared next to Wuxia seemingly out of nowhere, placing a hand on his shoulder. Wuxia opened his eyes sharply, the Dharma aspect on his body dissipating instantly. He turned to see Nzizai standing beside him and his brows relaxed. Nzizai frowned at him and said, "Demonic possession? Your aura just now almost disturbed the continent." Nowadays, the continent is no longer occupied solely by the Wuxia disciples. Although the Mountain of No End has become an immortal name, should there be truly overwhelming aura spreading out, it would certainly invite trouble. Wuxia's eyes flashed with confusion, and he couldn't help but ask, "Did I lose control just now? Didn't you notice?" "No, I thought I was in enlightenment, my consciousness had entered the great Tao." "It seems your enlightenment took a wrong path," Nzizai said seriously. In terms of cultivation level, he was currently slightly weaker than Wuxia, but if it came to a fight to the death, he had absolute confidence to defeat Wuxia. Wuxia also thought the same of him, so Wuxia always listened earnestly to his opinions. Wuxia looked up at Nzizai and asked, "Ancestor, can you tell me what happened to me just now?" Nzizai did not conceal anything, explaining everything he saw. After listening, Wuxia raised his hand to touch his forehead, his heart full of doubt. Nzizai looked at him, also feeling a sense of amazement. The ancestor once said that Wuxia hid even greater cause and effect. What could it possibly be? Though Nzizai was curious, he did not inquire, for he was powerless to address it. He hoped Wuxia would find the root by himself. How can a person of great power not understand themselves? Wuxia turned back, closed his eyes and pondered carefully, while Nzizai quietly guarded by his side. Soon Wuxia's mind again immersed into the great Tao. His mana once more uncontrolledly overflowed, and a mysterious Dharma aspect began to manifest. Nzizai watched this Dharma aspect, his eyes full of vigilance. This Dharma aspect's form was unlike Wuxia's. He was puzzled in secret. Who is this? Seeing Wuxia's aura grow stronger, Nzizai had to act again, waking Wuxia. As soon as Wuxia opened his eyes, he showed a look of terror. He looked up at Nzizai and said with a trembling voice, "Ancestor, I seem to have caused trouble. He is coming to find me and wants to slaughter all of Wuxia. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 928, Heaven Sent Providence, Who? So arrogant? Nzizai's face suddenly turned gloomy, for someone dared to threaten Wuxia, which was the greatest insult to him. Who dared to boast they would slaughter all of Wuxia? In his heart there was no fear, only anger. Wuxia tried hard to calm himself, recalling he said, "I also don't know who he is a Taoist emperor, he forced me to accept his power, I felt something was amiss and refused. Afterwards, he threatened me saying he would come to me himself, to annihilate those of the same path as me." Those of the same path made Wuxia think it referred to fellow disciples of Wuxia. Nzizai pondered for a moment and said, "Come with me, we will go see the ancestor." Upon hearing this, Wuxia was about to speak but stopped himself. Though he seldom communicated with the ancestor, what he cared about most was the ancestor's opinion of him. Nzizai said solemnly, "This matter is no longer just about you, it's trouble for the entire Wuxia. Don't delay important matters for the sake of saving face." After hearing this, Wuxia immediately stood up and took a deep breath. Thus, the two left the mountain peak, heading to the mountain of No End to find Guan Efari, Webnov. Oh. See. However, Guan was not at the mountain of No End, so they could only wait for his return outside the courtyard. They waited for several days. When Guan returned, and Zizai was the first to welcome him. Don't worry, you continue cultivating. I will personally handle the trouble for Wuxia. Guan said with a smile, leaving Zizai slightly stunned. Before Zizai could respond, Guan stepped forward and entered the courtyard. Wuxia watched Guan walk past him, instinctively opening his mouth. Ancestor, that person is a Taoist. He hadn't finished speaking when he saw Guan raise his hand, signaling him to stop speaking. He could only pause, staring blankly as Guan entered the courtyard. Once Guan's figure disappeared from their sight, Wuxia turned his head to look at Zizai, his face full of bafflement. Zizai, however, smiled and said, then continue cultivating. This shows that all the cause and effect of that person is within the ancestor's view. Saying this, Zizai's eyes were filled with expectation. He wanted to see the scene where that arrogant person knelt before the ancestor to beg for mercy. Wuxia had always known the ancestor was strong, but exactly how strong he wasn't sure, yet the feeling the mysterious Taoist emperor gave him sent chills through him. With his current cultivation level facing that Taoist emperor, he couldn't muster any resistance, as if he was confronting the great Tao itself. Is it really okay? Wuxia thought anxiously, frowning deeply. Zizai didn't say much to comfort Wuxia. He just patted Wuxia's shoulder and turned to leave. Wuxia looked back at the courtyard. The pavilion belonging to the ancestor had its doors and windows all closed. He could only suppress the unease in his heart and leave as well. In the years that followed, Wuxia found that he no longer encountered that Taoist emperor, and his enlightenment returned to its former smooth and tranquil state. He suspected it was the ancestor's doing, allowing him to completely let go of his inner unease and focus on cultivation. Rather than relying on the ancestor's protection, he more wished to be the one who protected Wuxia. The sky was filled with red clouds, a large river spanned across the wilderness, dividing the land in two. The river's waters surged and roared, stirring up rows of splashes on both banks, magnificently grand, the momentum overwhelming. On one of the riverbanks, Liya and Martial Resolution sat drinking together, with a small table between them laden with cakes and fruits, very exquisite. Having finished a cup of wine, Martial Resolution praised, "Brotherly, I didn't expect you to have such elegance. At our cultivation level we have long practiced fasting. Few people are like you, preparing wine and snacks." Liya laughed and replied, "I learned it from junior brother Gu. No matter how high his cultivation, wherever he goes, he always has the leisure to enjoy everything, appreciating the world with a mortal's perspective. I find it quite right. After all, we are all mortal, that's our starting point." Speaking of Guan, Martial Resolution also felt deeply, sighing, "I wonder where brother Gu is now. Don't worry, with Central Heaven's development trend, he will surely come eventually. With his kind of personality, he seems not to like being in the limelight, but in reality he loves to be part of the excitement," Liya said with a chuckle. Meeting Martial Resolution in Central Heaven brought him both surprise and deep emotions. Without Guan, perhaps neither he nor Martial Resolution would have reached here. Although he wasn't clear on how Martial Resolution came here, intuition told him it certainly had something to do with Guan. Martial Resolution shared the same thought, both pervaded with confidence, but they wouldn't deny Guan's significance to them. The distance between Central Heaven and the celestial spirit great world was incredibly vast. The two hadn't seen each other for hundreds of millions of years, yet reuniting here, the fate brought new sensations to their Tao hearts. After discussing Guan, Martial Resolution mentioned a major event happening in the world today, curiously asking, "That Xuanji Emperor challenges the Dragon Emperor and wants to propagate the Primordial Tao Emperor. What do you think, what are his chances?" The Primordial Tao Emperor is a kind of great Tao destiny, influenced by Guan, which Martial Resolution and Liya unintentionally embarked upon. They never associated the Primordial Tao Emperor with Guan because the Primordial Tao Emperor was so profound, akin to the immortal position of the immortal gods, as if it was the great Tao itself, naturally existing. Liya restrained his smile, contemplating seriously, and said, "I've met both the Dragon Emperor and the Xuanji Emperor. Although the Dragon Emperor's talent is daunting, I feel Xuanji Emperor has a higher chance of winning. After all, that guy once traversed the path of the great Tao, leaving behind a great reputation in the 3,000 great worlds, his battle experience incomparable to the Dragon Emperor." Martial Resolution nodded and said, "I also hope he can win. If the Primordial Tao Emperor spreads in Central Heaven, it will be beneficial to your and my cultivation. The Primordial Tao Emperor is a kind of great Tao destiny, The more cultivators, the stronger they are, the stronger it becomes, and the more it helps the cultivators in return. The primordial Tao Emperor can aid them in better enlightenment, making it an important support in their cultivation, both holding great anticipation for it. Just then a flake of golden snow descended from the sky, landing between them. They looked up, discovering a sky filled with red clouds was snowing a golden snow. The golden snow fell on the table, transforming into golden chi and dissipating soundlessly. Martial Resolution raised an eyebrow. This snow is extraordinary, did you feel it? Leah squinted at the tabletop, where the golden chi left no traces, pondering. It contains the spiritual energy of the Tao origin, it's a great fortune. Both immediately sat cross-legged, beginning to cultivate energy and perceive it. This golden snow fell increasingly heavily, covering all central heaven, with its scope expanding and growing denser. In Island, Xuanwu meditated alone on the beach, looking up to feel the golden snow, murmuring, could it be another prodigy is born? Throughout the endless years, celestial phenomena emerged one after another, some terrifying to all beings, some bestowing opportunities upon them, making him accustomed to such events. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 929, Transcending the Heavenly Tao. The golden snow fell for 7 days and 7 nights. Upon landing, it transformed into mist and dissipated without a trace. No water, no other marks, and the earth remained unchanged, but all living beings between heaven and earth were blessed by its grace. Some beings, through this opportunity, broke through the bottlenecks in their realms that had been stagnant for so long. Some were severely injured, on the brink of death, and were saved by this golden snow. Many others gained insights to create cultivation techniques and divine skills. The myriad creations surging forth in the world made all living beings rejoice, and they were filled with gratitude toward the creator of this miracle. In central heaven, every being bathed in the golden snow knew a name: True Yuan Ancestor. This True Yuan Ancestor did not call out to all living beings, yet this name emerged in their hearts, and they could even glimpse his blurred silhouette. Because of this miracle, the True Yuan Ancestor instantly became the supreme great power in the hearts of all beings, for throughout history, no great power has ever bestowed such a miracle on all living beings. The vast majority of beings believed True Yuan Ancestor to be either an immortal god descending to earth or an outer heaven great power arriving. Central heaven could actually nurture such a great power, indeed a talent of primordial profound venerable immortal quality. Guwen rested under a tree, a leaf covering his face, whispering softly. He was alone in this grove, unafraid of being overheard. This True Yuan Ancestor is a newly born being of central heaven, and this miracle was bestowed in celebration of his birth, also letting all beings know of his existence and power. True Yuan Ancestor was born as a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, surpassing all beings in talent. He carried a mission, upholding the will of heaven and earth, and Guwen could see a trace of the celestial emperor's will surrounding him. He did not have such talent because of the celestial emperor. Rather, it was his extraordinary talent that attracted the celestial emperor's attention. The celestial emperor was still in a state of reincarnation but could sense any changes in the heavenly Tao if they occurred. Guwen lay under the tree, enjoying the quiet environment while observing this True Yuan Ancestor. Due to the celestial emperor's attention, the fate of the True Yuan Ancestor was constantly changing, with various destinies, some good and some bad. Finally, the celestial emperor's indecisive mind was settled, but unfortunately, what was decided for the True Yuan Ancestor was not a path of enlightenment, but a path of abandonment. Guwen felt sympathy for the True Yuan Ancestor, but with no personal ties he would not help him. He pondered the relationship between the Celestial Emperor and the Heavenly Tao, wondering if the Celestial Emperor had never become a saint because of too deep an obsession. The Celestial Emperor's desire to control the myriad things of the Heavenly Tao was exceedingly strong. Although he seemed to be above all, distant from all beings, in reality the fate of all beings lay in his hands. Even though Guwen had attained sainthood, he found that the Holy Tao was not fixed. During the growth of his lifespan he contemplated the different paths to sainthood. Even as a saint he could not help others achieve sainthood. The primordial Tai true saint transcends even the great Tao. Every saint is equivalent to an entirely new great Tao, a stronger great Tao. Observing the path to sainthood is about observing how to create the great Tao. True Yuan Ancestor is the greatest talent in the history of Central Heaven, but the future may not be so. Guwen watched True Yuan Ancestor, peering into the myriad things of all beings, seeing things even the Celestial Emperor could not see. The heavenly Tao creates heavens and earth. Heavens and earth create living beings, and among these beings hides a power that surpasses the heavenly Tao. This is a very deep force, not cause and effect or destiny, but an enigmatic power. This profound power gives all beings the hope to transcend the heavenly Tao. Guan immersed himself, entering the consciousness of the heavenly Tao. To him, the heavenly Tao now posed no obstacle. He could enter the heavenly Tao itself, see everything within it, and even access every corner of the heavenly Tao. In the valley, long willows with pink petals swayed in the wind, countless petals danced and colorful butterflies circled. A stream ran through the valley, and beside it stood a white-haired elder in golden clothes, tall and with an ethereal aura. He gazed at his reflection in the water, brows furrowed. He was the true Yuan ancestor that all beings remembered. At this moment, the true Yuan ancestor had just taken his first step 7 days ago. He looked at his face, contemplating the meaning of his existence. Heavenly Tao. Heaven and earth. Immortal? His eyes flickered as he muttered softly as if asking himself. In these 7 days he had consolidated his cultivation level, becoming a true heaven-opening Daluo immortal, but he had received many memories in his mind as if they were innate. He was born with a mission, but he felt a deep resistance to this mission from within. He was filled with curiosity about heaven and earth, and this curiosity broke through all shackles. He understood what a Daluo immortal was, and precisely because of this he could not accept having any mission, seeing it as a form of bondage. Is it truly my own thoughts, or has heaven and earth, even the heavenly Tao, imposed them upon me? These words of the true Yuan ancestor were not spoken aloud. He felt that doing so would bring trouble. For some reason, from the moment he first opened his eyes, although he was curious about heaven and earth, there was also a deep-seated vigilance. He felt the presence of countless atmospheres on earth, but none were the same as his own, none felt akin. He even wanted to obliterate those atmospheres because they caused him discomfort. After much thought, true Yuan ancestor turned and walked out of the valley. He walked slowly, contemplating every step. True Yuan ancestor bestowed Fuyuan upon all beings, yet they did not know of his resistance toward them. In the years that followed, those grateful to him continually sang his praises, revered him like a god, and he heard these remarks while among the world, but he took no joy in them, becoming more vigilant instead. He always felt as if everything he saw and heard was guiding him. There was a certain force wishing for him to be grateful and compassionate toward those weaker atmospheres, a certain will wanting to determine his thoughts, which made him increasingly uncomfortable. His pace began to quicken, interacting with no other being as if fleeing from a celestial net. Thousands of years later he arrived at the ocean. The beings atop the ocean were many, but there were few distractions, bringing him a bit of comfort. Though he was comforted, Guan was not. On Inch Island, Guan sat fishing on a rocky outcrop, accompanied by Xuanwu looking at the sea, a sense of helplessness in his heart. Why was this fellow flying toward him? True Yuan ancestors' inclinations confirmed Guan's suspicions, that all heavenly Tao creatures possess the power to break free from the heavenly Tao, but this power is challenging to lead forth. Though merely a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, true Yuan ancestor could perceive the celestial emperor's will. Such an instinct was more fearsome than his talent. When true Yuan ancestor resisted the celestial emperor's will, his fate became blurred, his destiny branched, forming countless paths and extending infinitely. At this rate, true Yuan ancestor will eventually become an existence intolerable to the heavenly Tao. He will either transcend the heavenly Tao or face boundless calamity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 930, True Yuan Ancestors Trial. The summer sun blazed down upon the mountain peak enshrouded in immortal mist. Wuxia stood at the cliff's edge, brow furrowed, his gaze piercing the clouds to look beyond the heavens. Ever since being threatened by that mysterious Taoist emperor, despite the assistance of his ancestors allowing him to cultivate at ease, the matter lingered in his heart. Today he had a strong intuition. That Taoist emperor was coming. The person was descending from the outer heaven of central heaven. An ascender can only appear for the first time within the world itself. Beings coming from outside the world are invariably powerful, capable of conversing with the celestial court as unparalleled great powers. Wuxia pondered how the person would descend. Would they arrive quietly on the Wuxia continent, or come with heavenly might, alarming the all-living beings under heaven? If it were the latter, Wuxia might have a hard time remaining hidden, which was not something Wuxia wished to see. Arriving at central heaven, although Wuxia did not venture out, he could sense the fortune of central heaven. Coupled with the many stories he had heard, he did not wish to be forced to leave before he truly understood Central Heaven firsthand. Wuxia stood on the cliff, lost in thought, the golden lines on his forehead faintly visible, making him appear quite mystical. Freeway novel. Come at the same time. The Wuxia continent welcomed an old acquaintance of Guan, none other than Martial Resolution. Martial Resolution had come to the Wuxia continent by chance. Upon hearing that there were immortals there, he wanted to visit them. Ever since the supreme demon god was exterminated, after witnessing the massacre of the human race, Martial Resolution felt that perhaps the events he saw concealed a greater conspiracy. Why did the immortal gods above not deal with the supreme demon god earlier, but only act after the human race flourished? And the supreme demon god, acting in such an evil manner, knowing that the immortal gods observed humanity, yet remained so ostentatious. Why was the Son of Heaven the one to deal with the supreme demon god? Coming from the 3,000 great worlds, Martial Resolution was well aware of the struggle for the title of Son of Heaven, so the appearance of Emperor Taihao made him very sensitive. He could not understand, so he simply chose not to think about it. He did not want to get involved in worldly matters again, only wanting to pursue the Tao. He had traveled through Central Heaven, visiting many immortals and enlightened beings, benefiting immensely, and he thoroughly enjoyed this journey. As he took his first step onto the Middle Heaven continent, a look of disappointment showed on Martial Resolution's face. The spiritual energy on this continent was somewhat low, and even if there were immortals, their Tao practices were likely not very high. However, since he was here, Martial Resolution would not turn back. Even witnessing the local customs and people here was worthwhile. He proceeded along the mountain path, with an endless ocean behind him and majestic mountains stretching ahead. As he walked, he scanned the area with his divine sense. He was surprised to discover that the cultivation levels of the beings here were generally lower than outside, yet he did not regard this continent with disdain. Rather, it piqued his curiosity even more. Despite the generally weaker beings, they managed to live in harmony, which was not commonly seen. In Central Heaven, the law of the jungle was prevalent, so why hadn't stronger beings come to occupy this land? Although Central Heaven was vast, as more powerful beings arose, the land without a master naturally became scarce. At this moment, Martial Resolution seemed to sense something, instinctively turning to see a black-robed man appear on the hill behind him. This black-robed man with disheveled hair resembled a ghost. He was barefoot, holding a bone staff in his right hand, embodying darkness itself. Merely standing there sent chills of terror through Martial Resolution. Now close to the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, even Martial Resolution felt his hackles rise when faced with this person. Martial Resolution frowned, subconsciously wanting to inquire of the other person. But the black-robed man took a step forward, directly crossing over to stand in front of Martial Resolution. The two were less than 20 centimeters apart, their eyes meeting. Martial Resolution's pupils dilated abruptly, and he instinctively wanted to step back, yet he was enveloped by an unimaginable sense of oppression, unable to move. Martial Resolution saw the icy killing intent in the other's eyes. Primordial Tao Emperor? Foolish, but your cause and effect are not simple. For now I'll spare you. Get lost, or you will be buried along with the all-living beings of this continent. The black-robed man said coldly. As the words fell, Martial Resolution breathed a sigh of relief, stumbling back a few steps, fear etched upon his face. The black-robed man snorted coldly, turning into a black wind that swept past Martial Resolution. Martial Resolution instinctively turned to look, only able to see him disappear into the distant forest, unable to trace his movements. Buried? Martial Resolution recalled the man's words, his heart pounding in terror. Judging from the suppression earlier, he was by no means a match for this person. He had no cause and effect with the creatures of this continent and naturally would not be buried for them. All he felt was a sigh in his heart. Such a harmonious land was about to be destroyed. Indeed, every place in Central Heaven was filled with savagery and killing intent. Martial Resolution stopped thinking about it, leaping into the air towards the distance. At the same time, in the forest, the black-robed man's neck was held by a hand, raised high, both his hands clutching that hand, a look of fear and despair on his face, entirely different from when he faced Guan earlier. Who exactly are you? The black-robed man asked with a trembling voice. Facing the person before him, he had no power to resist. The other appeared so quickly that he was captured before he could react. Guan held the black-robed man, an amused smile on his face as if discovering an interesting toy. He was too lazy to converse with the black-robed man, directly snapping his neck. Crack. The black-robed man's eyes bulged, and then he quickly shrank, falling into Guan's hand, transforming into a crooked-necked wooden figurine clad in black clothes, resembling a puppet. Guan hung this wooden figure on his belt, then turned to leave. As for Martial Resolution's departure, Guan felt no regret. He did not want to meet Martial Resolution just yet. Since the Supreme Demon God was exterminated, Martial Resolution's mood had remained heavy, and amid such emotions his limit on lifespan continued to increase, with his future Tao practice limit also rapidly rising. This was Martial Resolution's own fortune. Before he walked out of it himself, Guan would not meet him. After taking 7 steps, Guan arrived at Inch Island. He stood on the cliff of Inch Island, his gaze fixed on the distant ocean. Under his watch, rolling thunderclouds gathered over the ocean, as if a storm was imminent. He smiled, tossing the wooden figure hanging from his waist lightly in that direction. "I give you a test to see if you can pass through him," Guan murmured softly. He spoke of the true Yuan ancestor. The true Yuan ancestor had come because he felt that the heavenly Tao suppression was weak here at Inch Mountain, which would undoubtedly bring some trouble to Inch Island. However, a meeting of fate was at hand and Guan was willing to give him a chance. This black-robed man was no simpleton. He was a genuine Tao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal, also a Taoist emperor. He was a servant of the creator of the Taoist emperor, here to force out Guan, trying to expose Guan to the celestial Tao immortal gods. Unfortunately, this creator had underestimated Guan's Tao practice. As for why he did not dare to show himself, it was because he too feared the celestial court. The heavenly Tao did not allow him. The true Yuan ancestor was merely a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, by no means a match for the Tao Extreme Daoyuo immortal, so Guan had laid some plans to force that creator to show himself. Guan could directly find that creator, but he hoped even more that the creator would walk before him, to perish in shock and despair, the price for scheming against him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 931. Taichi Emperor. In the midst of the storm, the true Yuan ancestor walked forward through the air, his white hair flowing in the wind, golden clothes fluttering, his expression resolute, staring straight ahead. His gaze suddenly fell towards the west. Following his gaze, amidst the raging waves, there was a small island standing quietly, regardless of how fierce the surrounding waves were. This island was never inundated. He hesitated for a moment, then flew towards that small island. He didn't deliberately fly into this sea region, but encountered sudden changes in the weather along his way. At first, he didn't pay attention, but later he couldn't fly out of this sea region, realizing that he might have inadvertently entered a forbidden area set by the rules of heaven and earth. There are many such forbidden areas created by the rules, causing creatures to lose direction, or to sink into decadence and rot, with effects that vary. Having traveled extensively, the true Yuan ancestor remained calm, believing he could break through with his abilities. However, reality was not what he expected. After a long time without being able to break free, the true Yuan ancestor became cautious. Now, finally seeing an island he had to investigate, perhaps the exit lay on the island. He quickly flew onto the island, hovering in the air, frowning as he inspected, soon drawn to a particular spot on the island. He raised his right hand, commanding from a distance. A wooden figure swiftly flew to him. He didn't touch it, keeping a distance of 20 centimeters from his palm. He furrowed his brows, carefully examining the wooden figure. Across the entire island, only this wooden figure emitted life energy, making him very uncomfortable. His intuition told him that the formation of this forbidden area was related to the wooden figure before him. He probed the wooden figure with his divine sense, and his expression changed dramatically, immediately releasing the figure, letting it drop. Watching the figure fall into the forest below, he tightly frowned. He turned and flew into the distance, afterward exerting all his strength, flying in various directions, yet he couldn't escape the sea domain. He couldn't even expel the storm clouds, as if trapped in a boundless world of torrential rain without a way out. Several hours later, the true Yuan ancestor returned to the island, entering the forest, found the wooden figure fallen among the grass. His eyes became resolute, deciding to release the terrifying presence within the wooden figure. Born as a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, he had never fought before. He disliked fighting because since birth he wanted to destroy the energies that displeased him, fearing submission to such instincts. But now, perhaps it was time to test his power, to break barriers with his strength. He still had untapped greater power. The true Yuan ancestor cast a spell on the wooden figure, smashing it instantly. A surge of black fog erupted, swiftly engulfing the entire forest. Amid the dazzling and strange chaos void, a vast star cloud concealed countless realms. These realms appeared like continents, surrounded by various lights as if stones encased in bubbles. Above these realms, a piece of curved wood pierced through the star cloud, and on the curved wood stood a figure. This was a man dressed in a dark red robe, his features youthful and handsome, hair black and white intertwined, loosely draped, surrounded by multicolored streams of air, causing his robes to gently flutter. He sat on the curved wood, body leaning against a small table, one hand supporting his cheek, posture lazy. He slowly opened his eyes, his gaze emitted brilliant light, akin to two appearing suns, brightening the entire void. That feeling again, unable to deduce what divine presence are you? F3, WKB, NOVL. C. Owen, the man in the red robe murmured, his tone bewildered. He was the presence referred to as the creation Tao Emperor with the Tao name Taichi. Taichi Emperor was born from the heavenly Tao, forced into chaos due to some special reasons. He left behind his great Tao destiny in the heavenly Tao, rooting and sprouting as more cultivators emerged, with his own Tao practice also strengthening. Until one day he noticed the growth speed of his Tao practice slowing. Through deduction he discovered a new great Tao destiny emerging within the heavenly Tao, known as Primordial Tao Emperor, puzzling him. Didn't the Celestial Emperor promise only a single great Tao destiny would exist? Due to apprehension about the Celestial Emperor, he could only secretly observe Primordial Tao Emperor. Later he understood why the Celestial Court allowed Primordial Tao Emperor's existence. Unlike his great Tao Emperor, which strengthened through slaughter and mutual devouring of destiny, his great Tao destiny was utilitarian and aggressive, but Primordial Tao Emperor was purer, not threatening any destiny compatible with other great Tao destinies. When he saw a great Tao Emperor concurrently cultivating Primordial Tao Emperor, he realized Primordial Tao Emperor was different. Previously, attempts to concurrently cultivate different great Tao destinies failed, with the severe cases falling into demonic possession, dying violently. Due to Primordial Tao Emperor's uniqueness, the great Tao Emperor was fearful. What kind of existence could create such a great Tao destiny? What was its purpose? When some great Tao Emperors began doubting, thinking great Tao Emperor might be inferior to Primordial Tao Emperor, he understood the ambition behind it. He felt he couldn't sit idly by. He dispatched his servant, the Black Desire Emperor, appearing confident but secretly considering Black Desire Emperor as expendable. He hoped to force the existence to reveal itself with Black Desire Emperor's strength. Over countless years, he used the destiny created through Great Tao Destiny Emperors to infiltrate the cause and effect of Primordial Tao Emperor, investing years into it. Taichi Emperor's gaze turned to the heavenly Tao, reflecting the scene of central heaven in his pupils. He was certain that the source of Primordial Tao Emperor's cause and effect was in central heaven, and the disappearance of the Black Desire Emperor for a while, followed by its reappearance days later, puzzled him. Why didn't the opponent eliminate the Black Desire Emperor? Wasn't Black Desire Emperor strong enough to provoke the opponent? The Black Desire Emperor was Tao Extreme Daluo Immortal, defeated silently wouldn't be easy. Most puzzling was, why did the Celestial Emperor indulge such a strong presence? He could discern that Primordial Tao Emperor and the Heavenly Tao were unrelated, definitely not the Celestial Emperor's scheme. Despite the mystery, he wouldn't report to the Celestial Emperor, for he not only sought to destroy Primordial Tao Emperor but also the Celestial Court, where the key lay in eliminating the Celestial Emperor. How powerful was the Celestial Emperor? Taichi Emperor lurked within chaos, waiting for an opportunity. As Taichi Emperor pondered, his expression subtly changed. That aura? Could it be? Taichi Emperor showed joy, even suddenly stood up. He sensed the aura of Black Desire Emperor fighting. The joy wasn't for Black Desire Emperor, but the heavenly Tao creature confronting him. Such cause and effect, such aura, surely the variable he had always awaited. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 932. The heavenly horse descends. The sun was bright, and the waves continuously crashed onto the beach, sending up rows of white spray. Xuanwu stood on the beach, gazing at the distant thunderclouds, his brow furrowed, eyes filled with worry. Those thunderclouds had appeared years ago and never dispersed, making him increasingly concerned. He had asked Guan, but Guan just told him not to worry. Stop staring at it, just focus on your cultivation. Guan's voice came, startling Xuanwu into quickly withdrawing his gaze and turning to leave. He hated cultivation the most, but he dared not defy his master's orders. Fru. Oh. Val. Guan, who was painting in the courtyard, felt rather helpless about Xuanwu's mindset. Unlike the deep-sea dragon carp, Xuanwu had no desire to become strong. In Xuanwu's heart, striving for strength had no meaning. He preferred sleeping. The challenge with Luan before was also forced by Guan. Guan hoped they could motivate each other, but it failed. After Luan left, Xuanwu frequently slacked off to sleep. Even when the True Yuan ancestor and the Black Desire Emperor fought nearby, it failed to ignite a diligent spirit in Xuanwu. Though Guan was helpless, he wasn't angry. Everyone has choices and Xuanwu could make his own. He was painting a scene of the battle between the True Yuan ancestor and the Black Desire Emperor. The Black Desire Emperor looked fierce, while the True Yuan ancestor's back was as steady as Mount Tai. He suppressed the cultivation level of the Black Desire Emperor. As the True Yuan ancestor grew stronger, the restrictions on the Black Desire Emperor weakened, so the battle was very intense, with both sides going all out. The reason he painted here was to wait for another presence. The Taichi Emperor of the Creation Tao Emperor. He had already seen all the causes and effects of the Taichi Emperor, knew everything about him, and knew that the Taichi Emperor would soon descend, ready to capture the True Yuan ancestor. Guan painted while watching the battle, feeling quite leisurely. He now increasingly understood the feelings of the Celestial Emperor. But unlike the Celestial Emperor, he had no such strong desire for control. Even towards his disciples, he never forced them to stay by his side, nor cared for the so-called power. Whinny. Suddenly, a loud whinny echoed across the sky, causing Xuanwu, who was dragging himself towards his cultivation site, to look up. Immediately, his eyes widened as he saw a glorious golden rainbow appear on the distant horizon. On that golden rainbow galloped a magnificent large white horse. This horse also had a pair of dragon horns on its head, clearly having reached the Taiching golden immortal realm, its aura surpassing all creatures in the world, giving him an indescribable sacred feeling, making him have the urge to worship. Guan also looked up and saw a figure standing on the head of that white horse, exuding the aura of an immortal god. This reminded Guan of ancient myths, where the offspring of immortal gods would descend to the lower realm to frolic wantonly, without ill intentions yet bringing disaster to the human world. This immortal god's figure was the offspring of a supreme immortal, riding a heavenly horse from the celestial court, wanting to see the legendary central heaven. The blatantness of this immortal indicated that the celestial court's restrictions on entering and exiting central heaven were beginning to relax, forecasting that more immortal gods would descend in the future, making immortal gods no longer just mythical to the living beings. Xuanwu hurried up the mountain to Guan's side, asking nervously, "Master, what is the origin of that horse?" The heavenly horse had already galloped into the distance, not heading toward Inch Island. As for the sea area where the True Yuan ancestor and Black Desire Emperor battled, Guan had obscured its causes and effects, allowing only the Taichi Emperor to feel it. A heavenly horse from the celestial court, many breeds exist. This one is a warhorse for battling evil demons, capable of trampling you to death with one hoof. Your turtle shell wouldn't withstand it. Guan said softly, and at the end he glanced at Xuanwu with a teasing look. Xuanwu tensed up in fright and asked further, "Master, you are so powerful and know so much about immortal gods, could you be an immortal god from the heavens?" "I am not." "Why not? Why should I be? Is being an immortal god very good?" Guan looked at Xuanwu, asking curiously. Xuanwu felt restless under his gaze, but seeing that it wasn't a scold, he bravely said, "All living beings cultivate immortality to become immortals. Only by being an immortal god can we know why we should become one." Guan chuckled, asking, "Do you want to ascend to immortality?" "Of course I want to. I also want to see the celestial court. If life there is too tense, I can leave." Xuanwu said with a longing expression. "The celestial court is not a place you can come and go as you please, and immortal gods may not be as carefree as you imagine." Guan shook his head, smiling wryly. However, he was also curious about the immortal gods. Even though he could see their lives, he contemplated whether he should try it himself. Where is absolute freedom? Xuanwu sighed, his eyes showing a hint of resentment. Guan found it reasonable, nodding. "In that case, why don't you quickly go cultivate?" His face turned stern, scaring Xuanwu into a shiver, who quickly turned around and ran off. "Immortal gods, I wonder if they are interesting." Guan mumbled to himself, redirecting his gaze to the paper before him. He removed the painted paper and replaced it with a new sheet of white paper, preparing to paint the heavenly horse from earlier. Could someone like me also ascend to immortality? Leah kneeled on the ground, looking at the white-haired ancestor meditating under the tree in front, asking in shock. This was the dojo of the white-haired ancestor. Upon Martial Resolution's recommendation, Leah came to seek immortal fate. The white-haired ancestor sat with a dignified posture, her face serene. She calmly gazed at Leah, saying, "You have accumulated merit over time, and the Taoist lineage you wish to create benefits the development of the heavenly Tao, so you possess the qualifications to ascend to immortality." Leah naturally wanted to ascend to immortality. It was for this reason that he came to Central Heaven, yet he didn't expect to encounter an opportunity with the immortal god so soon, knowing that the white-haired ancestor before him was a bona fide immortal god. "But my cultivation level?" Leah suppressed his excitement, hesitantly asking. The white-haired ancestor replied, "Whether you can ascend to immortality, cultivation level is the least important. After ascending you will naturally become stronger, surpassing all living beings." Leah's heart began to race, suddenly unsure of what to say next. However, the white-haired ancestor's tone shifted, and these words quickly disappointed Leah. "Indeed, ascending to immortality is not that easy." The white-haired ancestor said, "What you need to do now is continue your previous endeavors. Take in disciples, create your Taoist lineage, travel the world, establish merit, and one day an immortal official will descend, personally find you, and take you to the celestial court." Immortal official? Leah's hope reignited once more. Just as he was about to inquire further, the white-haired ancestor closed her eyes and said, "Go, you should have already received the answer you sought." Hearing this, Leah gave her one last deep look, then respectfully bowed and stood up to leave. Turning towards the mouth of the valley, Leah's eyes were filled with anticipation and determination. This meeting at least confirmed the path he was to follow was the correct one. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible.